Did you ever think you'd root for a killer? Well, in episode 2 of Sweetpea, I found myself doing just that with Rhiannon. This episode starts with Rhiannon waking up all happy, only to quickly remember what she did the night before. That blood-stained knife and her clothes are a harsh reminder. It's almost funny how she just tries to toss them in the wash like it's no big deal. Then, Craig stops by wanting to buy her dad's business. What awful timing. She kicks him out, and honestly, good for her. She goes back to cleaning that knife, and you can see the thrill she gets from it. It's messed up, but you can understand it somehow. She heads off to work, and right away, she notices the cops by Meadow Lane Lock, the very spot where she left the body. I felt my own heart drop for her in that moment. Then there's AJ, being sweet and making her coffee, but she just brushes him off. Norman, on the other hand, wants a juicy story, and when she hesitates, Jeff jumps in to mention the dead body. And Rhiannon, not to be outdone, says it was a stabbing. Of course, Norman sends Jeff and AJ to cover the story. When they come back, everyone is going on about how crazy the killer must be and how there's no DNA because of the canal. You can tell it's really getting to Rhiannon, and honestly, it's hard to blame her. She sneaks a look at Jeff's notes, and AJ catches her, but she plays it off like she's just freaked out by the whole thing. The way she scrolls through the internet, seeing all the sympathy for the victim and hatred for the killer, you can almost feel her regret, or at least the weight of it. Then Jeff calls. He's found out who the guy was. Ryan Lloyd. No address yet, but Rhiannon doesn't waste time. She manages to convince Norman to let her get an exclusive with Ryan's family, and Norman sends AJ with her. On the drive, AJ notices something's off with her. She admits she's angry all the time, especially since her dad passed, and it just doesn't feel right to disturb a grieving family. AJ tries to cheer her up, telling her how he once broke his toe kicking a wall when his grandmother died. It's these little moments that make me like AJ even more. When they get to Ryan's parents' house, it's hard for Rhiannon. She sees Ryan's photos, and it's overwhelming. She says she needs the bathroom, but sneaks into his bedroom instead. Finding that restraining order against him makes her feel a little better. Like, maybe Ryan wasn't so innocent after all. They learn Ryan bullied a coworker named Dave, so much so that Dave got fired and filed a restraining order against him. That makes Rhiannon feel way less guilty. I kind of get it. She's trying to convince herself that Ryan deserved it. AJ, meanwhile, is impressed by her sleuthing, and they're actually getting along well. But then Julia, as usual, has to ruin her mood by setting up a home evaluation without telling Rhiannon. Rhiannon rushes home to clean everything, and she barely finishes before Julia arrives with Stella. Julia's comments are just brutal, especially about Rhiannon needing hair extensions. You can see how fed up Rhiannon is. She decides to push for the story on Ryan being a bully, and Norman likes the idea. Of course, Jeff is going to write it, but Rhiannon still gets credit, and for the first time, her coworkers actually invite her out to karaoke. At the bar, she seems to fit in a little better. She even turns down Craig when he brings up buying her dad's business again. She gets up to sing Roar, and just as she's finding her groove, the cops show up to question everyone about the murder. She hides in the bathroom, and there, she notices someone wrote some nasty graffiti about Ryan. It's almost like validation for her. She walks out of there with her head held high, ready to face anything. Then, she spots this rude guy, and it clicks. It's the same man who caused trouble at the hospital when her dad was dying. That's the last straw for her. She follows him into an alley and calls out for help, but instead of needing help, she stabs him. The episode ends with her smiling at a poster of Julia. It's twisted, but at the same time, it feels like she's reclaiming her power. This episode had me on edge, feeling for Rhiannon even when I knew I shouldn't. There's something about the way she tries to justify what she's doing that makes it almost understandable. I can't say I agree with her choices, but I get why she's doing them. And that's what makes Sweetpea so fascinating to watch.